When we're born, we are created like a unique finely cut diamond. We each shine brightly in our own authentic way. If we lived in a perfect world, as we grew up, we would be guided and protected while still being able to shine our light out into the world. Unfortunately, the world isn't perfect, so as we grow up, we are conditioned by other people's beliefs, and we ignore our internal GPS system, which is our intuition. So, how much of your light actually shines through as an adult? Many methodologies attempt to help by approaching from the outside. However, when you reconnect with your intuition and understand how it communicates with you, you are working from the inside out, so that the conditioning no longer has a hold on you, and you return to your authentic self. Join Ashley Goner and Jeannie Winters on GPS for Your Life, where they will guide you through all the ways you can make this happen.
Welcome, everyone, to GPS for Your Life. I am Ashley Goner, joined with the one and only
Jeannie Winters.
We are here to begin a journey on discovering your intuition and give you the tools and all the things you are born with that you are covering up, like the picture we saw in the intro, and light up your true self. And Jeannie, what do you want to talk about today for
Beautiful.
episode 1?
Yes, thank you. So I'm so excited that we're finally doing this. Everybody that we've talked to over the years struggles with, many people say that they struggle with being conditioned. And they're so conditioned over the years from what their environment tells them that they are, that they actually forget who they were when they were born. And so what people really need to do is reconnect with their intuition, but that's not as easy as it sounds, right?
Right.
So you and I are going to discuss a whole bunch of different techniques, methodologies, systems, universal laws and things that will help people understand how they got conditioned and how to reconnect with their true intuition so that all of that conditioning can fall off of them and they could start living their life in the way that they were meant to live it, peaceful, out of fear, aligned. Okay.
Yes. When you discuss like the compass, for an example, because I always used to love when I would to explain to people, like, you have a GPS system. It's automatic in your body, right? Like it's just like a compass.
It is.
Explain that analogy.
So your intuition is your internal compass. And so when you walk up to somebody, for example, and you meet them, let's say a friend wants to introduce you to somebody maybe you're going to do business with, and you shake the person's hand, you get this feeling. Let's say it's like a yuck feeling, like, oh, I don't know. Not that the person is something wrong with the person. It's just you get a weird feeling. Well, you tell your friend, I don't think it's gonna work out very well. And your friend says, no, you just don't know the person yet. You don't know them like I do. I promise they're great, they're great. And then you override what your intuition was. That's your compass. And you turn and you end up going like east when you're supposed to be going north, right? And you think you're gonna get to where you're supposed to be. Well, the problem is we're supposed to make decisions from our neck down for ourselves. This is everybody. No one's supposed to use their head for their own answers, their own decisions. They're supposed to listen to their body. Your head is meant to help other people make decisions. You help your children, you help other people in business. This is why when we give advice to other people, it's always really good advice. But when we try to use that advice on ourselves, it goes wrong. It's because our body tells us what is right and what is wrong for us, but we've been conditioned to override that information, right? So when you feel that weird feeling about somebody, it doesn't mean that the person's dangerous or scary most of the time. What it usually means is you're not in alignment with this person for your life journey, because we're not in alignment with everybody. And so your body knows ahead of time, and it's trying to give you a warning or a hint that this isn't the person that's supposed to be working with you. But if you override that, you're going to go through several months of working with this person, bump into things, have, disagreements, and then find out, well, I should have listened to myself in the beginning. Hindsight's 2020. Well, that's
Right.
hindsight being 2020. You weren't listening to your intuition. But we made an agreement with the universe when we came here that it would give us a hint with our intuition, telling us if something is right or wrong. But you have free will after that. So you get to make the decision. Do you want to listen to your intuition, or do you want to override it and try anyway? And we have been used to overriding it. And now we're so lost that we don't know how to get back on track with our compass. Our compass is like hidden somewhere.
Right.
Thanks.
When I always use the analogy of the Y in the road, and you have this like you probably should go left, but something's telling you to go right. And explain that when you do go, when you listen, when you think you're listening to your intuition, but something's pulling you, and then you're like, okay, I'm just going to take the right. I'm just going to turn right. So automatically you already questioned it. How do you decipher, and are you just looking for roadblocks to
So
realize
what you're supposed to do is not make a decision at the moment. No one
okay,
is supposed to make a very quick decision, because most people have what we call an emotional authority, which means that if you're in a really good mood, you're going to say yes to something that tomorrow you're going to regret saying yes to, you know?
right,
And then, so if you wait, at least if it's something really small, like, do you want to go to this restaurant for lunch? You can wait 15 minutes. Do not say yes at that moment. Just say, hey, let me take care of a couple things and I'll let you know. Give me 15 minutes. Then your body settles down and realizes, because sometimes we'll say yes, and it's a restaurant that we hate, but we're saying yes because we're caught up in the friendship. You guys are laughing or something. So you have to go back and apologize and say, no, I don't really like that restaurant. And then you feel bad, right? So what happens is it starts to beat on us, making us feel like we're being flaky because we're always backing out. So what do? We push ourselves through and go because we already said yes. So if
right,
you stop yourself from making a decision for at least 15 minutes, you will notice that you will have less things to feel bad about, and you won't have to push through on things because you feel guilty and you want to, make sure that the person's happy. A lot of us are people pleasers. Um, but if it's something important, you have to wait overnight. Your body has to settle down because it's a wave, it's an emotional wave. And a lot of us have different ways of knowing what's right and what's not right. Systems like human design can tell you what your system is, but overall, it's a sense in your body, right?
right,
So your intuition is a instant one-time hit that tells you as soon as you walk into a room and you get a feeling that something's not right, you need to leave, right? Because that's your body saying ahead of time, something's not right in this room for me. I need to remove myself from it. You remember when we were kids and you were going to go to a party and you really wanted to go to this party, but everything kept going wrong and you just felt like, I don't know, I really want to go. I feel like I shouldn't go. Something feels weird, but I really want to go. Well,
hmm,
that's you overriding your intuition. And then usually when you go, you run into an ex-boyfriend or you run into a girl who you had an argument with, or, it just doesn't work out the way you had hoped to. If we were taught to listen to that little voice, because it's not a loud voice, and override our head, then we would do better. When we're younger, a lot of times we're taught that little piece of it. But as you get older, and let's say you have a parent this is how it plays out a lot of times. Somebody has a parent who is an accountant and the whole family is into numbers, right? And you're not really interested in numbers. And the parents like, oh no, you're going to be an accountant just like the rest of us because this is a family thing. Well, the child feels this isn't right, but they're being told by a person that they're told knows better for them that is not what they should do, that they're not, don't worry about being creative. That's not going to give you the money. be an accountant. And what happens is this person ends up, this is actually a real story from somebody that I worked with. And she became an accountant and she was like 28 years old. She's like, I am miserable. I'm
Oh,
totally
wow.
miserable, and so she would have to relearn herself all over again. She had to reconnect with what she remembered from childhood. And that a lot of people don't even get there until after 50.
Wow. Yeah. Learning from you, because I'm a quick decision maker, and I know that's part of my human design. It's that gut, like I know, like right away, like that feels good or it doesn't. I'm pretty good about that. But, like when you talk about, being a parent and, guiding them thinking that you know the way,
Right.
when really they're the ones, when they get older, you try to help them when they're little, but
Right.
when they get older, especially like where we are with our children, like they need to start trusting their intuition, and the parents need to rely on them learning that, not you putting it upon them,
Right.
because that's not their path, is not the path that you've dreamed of.
Right. No, absolutely. And we don't know what their path is. It could be literally totally opposite than anybody else in the family. Right. And so if you don't listen to what they're saying, what they a lot of what I've noticed a lot of people who are successful at that do is they'll say, okay, you're interested in this, let's try this and see what you think about it, instead of saying, no, I'm not going to sign you up for dance class because you're not going to go anywhere with that. We'll try this out. What is it that you like about it? Right.
Hmm.
And what, how can you, what would you like to do with this from this point on? Your kids, you were really good. You listen to your kids. So you told me not long ago, I hope it's okay that I tell the
Oh
story.
yeah, all good.
Paige had, I thought you were in pageants, right?
Oh
It's
right.
both of your daughters are in pageants. And I asked you, I was like, were you? And you're like, no. Paige came up to me one day when she was little and said, I want to do this. That's huge because you weren't in them. So it wasn't, your background. You would have had no idea. I probably would have run from it, to be honest,
Right.
because
I was gonna run from it.
but
I
you
I
didn't. And
tried,
that's amazing. Look at your girls. I mean,
right? But it's like being a mom and like learning that you don't know the way and it's not your way. And you watch, the other parents around you trying to, I played football, so my son's going to play football and all those things, right? I've been on the softball field where these parents are like terrible. Like, and these poor kids are just like, I don't even like this. But it's so true, and it helps so much. You think of parents that are raising young children, if they could understand that they are leading their way, and like the pageant example, like Paige just know, like I know that now, especially all I've learned from you is like her soul was leading her. That was that one little postcard that she saw when she was 8 was like lit her up. I
yep.
mean, look at her now. It still lights her up,
And
you know?
that's exactly the way to do it. That is exactly the way to do it because you didn't know where it was going to go, and it might
No.
fall down at some point, and that's okay too. At least she was trying it.
Right.
I mean, there are. I am one of those parents. I'll be the first one to admit it. I thought boys should go into sports, right? And so I don't know what I was thinking because Anthony's father is not sports oriented at all. Excuse me. And when I put him in so many different sports that, I mean, when he was little, he actually laid down at the goalie in the
Oh
soccer
my gosh.
field because he didn't want to do it. So he's laying there like this, and everybody else, people, even at 5 years old, people get very upset if you interrupt the game, especially here. So I was just like, okay, yeah, well, this is not going to work because we did it a few times and he don't want to do with it, and
Right.
so what turned out is Anthony taught himself how to play guitar as a teenager. I never thought to take him to music. Not that I don't like music, I love music, but I don't play instruments, I mean,
Right.
there are people, cousins and stuff that play instruments, but I never thought about it. And he found his way, thank goodness, but if we push them in one direction and they don't go in that direction, you got to open up other directions.
Right.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and I didn't do that. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be fun to have a little school for these parents that are getting ready to have their babies? This is
Yeah,
what they need to be listening to this right now. Let's go
exactly.
into Dr. David Hawkins
Yes.
and the levels of consciousness, because I remember reading that book, oh gosh, when I was in my mid 20s, and I don't know why. It's so funny how what 30 years later, just about, it's like it always comes back in all my episodes. People, I mean, it's like it's amazing where that Dr. David Hawkins really made an impact on his teachings.
Absolutely. I'm going to share that right now, if that's okay.
You can.
Just so that we can see it real quick and then I'll come back. But in case people want to, and there it is. You see it?
I do.
Okay, great. So it's the map of consciousness, and what people don't understand. So I'm going to give you a little background. I'm sure you already know this, but Dr. David Hawkins I think he started it in the 60s. He went all over the world, every corner of the world, to figure out how to map out or how to put a scale to our emotions. And he came up with this scale to make it easier for us. He started it at, 0, which is obviously not living, but then shame at 20. It's an energetic type of code, up to 1,000, which would be like full enlightenment. And what he was trying to show is that the lower frequencies, the lower vibrations, which would be your apathy, guilt, anger, fear, desire, all this stuff, is literally just a signal to you from the universe that you're not going in the right direction. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Higher frequencies are, if we're happy and we're in these higher frequencies, we know we're going in the right direction. Somewhere along the line, somebody started saying, well, life isn't always supposed to be happy. You're supposed to get used to being unhappy. Yes, you're supposed to recognize when something doesn't make you happy, but it is literally just a signal that you are not supposed to stay in that frequency. So I'm going to come out of this. So I want you to think about this. I don't know if you and I ever talked about this. Think about a child, 3, 4 years old. They see a candle lit. They want to know what it is. So they go over and stick their finger in the flame and they get burnt. So they pull their finger out and they never do it again because they remember.
Right.
Okay. Now, we're supposed to do that in relationships, in business, in all sorts of things. But what do we do as adults? You're in a relationship where you and this person disagree. Let's say the person doesn't like what they don't like what you're wearing something too provocative to be out in public. This makes you feel uncomfortable because you like the way you're dressed. Instead of saying this isn't, we have to agree to this, so this isn't going to work, we try to find a way to get comfortable. So now we're in our fire, we're in our flame, knowing
Mm-hmm.
that this isn't right, and we're trying to find a place that's comfortable. Oh, okay, I'll change my clothes, I'll just wear something different. It's not your personality. You want to wear what you're wearing because that's your personality. Because as soon as you change that, that person is not really upset with your clothes. It's something else. So they're going to find something else. So what are you doing? You're literally sitting in the fire, trying to find a way to be comfortable instead of pulling out. So
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing with a job. If you're miserable at your job, it's a sign that that's not what you're supposed to be doing for a living. You're in the wrong place. But we try to find a way to get comfortable. Okay, I'm going to get up early and I'm going to go in with a muffin and I'm going to make sure that I exercise before I go to work so that I have all this energy. You're still doing the same job. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not like it's going to get any better. So you need to really understand, again, reconnect with your intuition by saying, okay, what is it that I enjoy doing? A lot of times where I have a lot of people start is I say, think back to before you went to school. When your parents would leave you alone, what would you do? Would you play with building blocks? Would you draw? Would you dance? Would you sing? Would you draw? I mean, what would you do? Because usually that gives you the sign, a signal of what your real true love is underneath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Like my daughter used to take clothes out all the time and try to match them.
Cute.
She ended up going to school for fashion,
Huh.
and that was a sign that she was really into that. But if I would have forced her to do something else, she would have never followed her, her intuition.
Right.
She could have ended up being whatever, and not knowing what it was that she was driven to do.
When you talk about being in the flame in a relationship and how people always go back to the same thing and, like the abuse and they're so used to that. So they find the next person they go to the same thing because they're used to that. How
Mhm.
do how do you give advice on getting rid of that, moving out of that program that your body's so used to?
So that's interesting that you bring that up. So what we'll talk about in another episode is, sorry, um, the gene keys. There's a sequence called the Venus sequence, and one of the spheres is called the attraction sphere. And what it tells you is the reason that you attract the same type of people is because there is a lesson that you wanted to learn when it came to relationships. And you will always attract that person until you learn that lesson. And then you will start to attract people that don't do that. So I'll give you an example. Mine is control. So I always attracted very powerful people, but they always wanted to control me.
Hmm.
And I was supposed to stand up for myself. And I was really nice and I was a people pleaser. And so I didn't stand up for myself. I mean, I would little by a little bit here and there, but they were very, very powerful people in their lives. So they weren't, they didn't, you were not going to say anything. So I had to start to learn. It took a while. I mean, 3 marriages to learn
Right.
how to say, no, 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 this is not how we're going to do things. I'm not going to do this way. And so if you're drawing, what you have to do is figure out what is the core thing that you're bringing to you, and then say, what lesson am I supposed to be learning here? Now, before we had any of the systems, gene keys, astrology, or human design, we had to figure it out for ourselves. There are systems now that will tell you by using your date, time, and town of birth specifically what you are here to learn in that area, in all different areas. But we'll get to those. I don't want to go too deep into,
Right.
but you can know that by recognizing what you're bringing to you.
Right.
I mean,
It makes you realize how much, when you talk about the candle example, as a baby, you know right away you're not going to be doing that again. Like instinctively, that little baby knows I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do whatever, put my finger in the socket, electrocute. They just know that's instant.
yep,
So, what a way to look at life and how we accustom ourselves to, not knowing what truly leads our souls to where we're supposed to be.
right. And then we get to a point where we're like, who am I? I mean,
Right.
a lot of us, we end up having children. We don't even know who we are, but we're so used to that. This is the path we're supposed to be, and we want to have children and we want to have them young, and then we raise them, and then we turn around and we're just like, okay, I don't even know who I am, and
Right.
what did I just raise? Who did I raise? I mean, I feel like I cheated them. It's like I really didn't know what I was doing. I mean, you do your best. It's most people do their best. It's just
Yes.
you're not teaching them from it's like the blind leading the blind, because
Right.
somewhere centuries ago people started to teach away from what we came here to learn, if that makes sense.
Right. Yes. Let's talk about personality
Okay.
and how explain that, because that was an interesting aspect of this, and how like how does the system know my personality?
So all right, so let's talk about each one of us has uh, different energies in our personnel, right? So we have consistent energy and we have inconsistent energy. So the inconsistent energy is where we have variables. So when you walk into someone else's auric field, you pick up if you have openings in your energy, you pick up that person's energy and you taste test what their energy is in that area. But you have some areas that you're consistent in. So let's say for you, you have life force energy that is consistent. Okay. So I don't. So when I'm around you, you give me that energy and it makes me want to, get things done and, move quicker. The problem is that every energy has an aligned frequency and two shadow frequencies. Okay.
Okay.
So it can show up as repressive or reactive. So if I was somebody who was more introverted, if someone came up to me and I'm supposed let for you, you're supposed to be using your energy. If you weren't using your energy because you're living in your shadow, you would just be more of maybe a couch potato. You'd be sitting there eating bonbons, just watching TV and stuff. That's you in the shadow, whoops, in the repressive side. In the reactive side, you might be combative. You know, I don't want to do that. You want me to do everything, because you're supposed to be moving forward with action, with life force, but you're trying to fight it, right? So you feel this energy that you're supposed to be using, but you don't know how to use it. So if you align yourself, if you start to understand what alignment looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can take yourself from that shadow up to alignment. But if you don't know what you're working with and you stand next to other people and you're constantly getting different emotions or different feelings in different areas, you can be very confused. Okay. Which is why I like to go into the different systems, human design, gene keys, and all that, because that can give you those specific systems. What happens with a lot of people is let's say you're combative. Okay. Your family will tell you, why you got to be so, argumentative? Why? I don't understand. You don't see that in yourself, right? Let's say it's one of those things that you just don't see. How do you know how to grow out of it if you don't see it in yourself? Okay.
Right.
The first thing that you do is you can see on the map of consciousness, that combative, that's a low frequency. Okay. So that is definitely a place you should not be. Okay. That's the first thing that you look at. Am I always in a place? Am I in grief all the time or more often? Am I ashamed of something a lot of the time? Am I living in guilt? If you're doing that more often than not, then you are out of alignment. You have to figure out a way to move up to the higher frequencies. So just looking at that map in the morning, you can put that on your wall and say, where am I at right now? If you wake up and you're in a good mood or you're neutral, you say, here, I'm here. And then halfway through the day, did something make you angry? You're down here again. Okay, do something to put yourself up here. Little by little, the more you recognize it, the more you will stay in alignment.
Right. I taught my girls when they were little, like a thermostat. Start the day at 100. You be the thermostat, and so it's kind of reminding me of that. Like
Okay.
start the day with that, and the tools that I gave them. Like the minute you get to school and you're at 100, and all the other people that didn't do the gratitude and the affirmations, they're probably down at 40, 30, 40. Because
Right.
they don't know how to get themselves to that 100 or love, joy, all
Yeah.
the David Hawkins, all those
Absolutely.
top high frequencies. So when you understand that feeling and you acknowledge that in your body and you get into that alignment and realize how important being at that 100 degree or the highest frequency in that list, and then you start to go, wait, I'm not right now. I need to go do my whatever it is to get back
Exactly.
there, because that, to me, when you're explaining that, it's like that is like the missing. If people don't get that in like the waking moment of their day,
Yep.
it could just be like this downward spiral. They don't know how to
Absolutely
catch
right.
it, right? So it's like that ball rolling down the hill, and it's like, how do I get that back?
Right.
You have to
Exactly.
understand that, how to get to that. And I feel like if people, what I want, what you're going to be teaching in here
Mhm.
is teaching people these tools, understanding themselves, getting to a place where they do understand the level of consciousness and how important it is to be at the highest state you can be to experience life with your intuition on 100%, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the whole, you're exactly right. If you stay at the higher frequencies more often, when you dip, you feel that like that burn and you say, "Oh, I don't want to do that again." But we are in 85% of the world is in the lower frequencies, under 200. And so we're used to this and we think this is normal. So, I mean, it's almost like if you're in a neighborhood that there's a lot of, crime.
Right, gangs or
They're
yeah,
used, yeah, they're used to that. So it's not like if we walked into a neighborhood, we would immediately feel that
right,
energy, that lower energy. But they live there. So they would have to go to something much worse to feel a difference. It's normal to them. You can't, you're not supposed to be in those lower frequencies on a regular basis. And you have to wake up to that, right? It's like people like, oh, well, it's just the way your life is. No, it's not. No, it's not. You have been told and you have been conditioned to believe that this is all there is. It's not true. If you start to raise that vibration and start your day off with gratitude, that is amazing. That is amazing to do that for children and have them, a lot of times with my kids, I didn't do it in the morning, but I tell them, if you're not having a good day, stop yourself and write three things that you're grateful for,
hmm,
and that's in the middle of the day. Starting out would have been phenomenal, you just don't, these are great tips for parents people who are just becoming parents. Our kids are, older and stuff, college and
right,
stuff, but it is extremely helpful. You can see the difference between somebody who explains this to their children. It doesn't mean that you're a better parent or a worse parent, because a lot
right,
of times people are doing their absolute best. They just don't have the tools. That's the whole idea of this, right? Is so that we can give people the tools. But you're absolutely right. That's staying at that higher vibration is extremely important.
right. It's the whatever brings you joy. Like when you think of your child loving clothes, obviously that brought her joy, right? That was bringing her joy. Paige saw this pageant stuff and it was bringing her joy. So it's like that's our life. Like find what brings you joy and
Yeah,
go there. Like the little yellow brick road and you start
yeah,
skipping down and you're like, this brings me joy.
yeah.
If it doesn't bring you joy and you're not on that higher level of those consciousness, those vibrations, those emotions,
Hmm.
then it's not if it's you're not your intuition, it's like showing you like, okay, it's bringing me fear or grief and all these low vibration feelings, then you're not on the right path.
You're exactly right. That's exactly right.
So being in check with all of those feelings is so critical to the beginning of this GPS for your life system that you're going to be teaching. And so exciting. How can we end this episode, Jeannie? What would you like to end it on?
I recommend that if anybody needs to, they can rewind it to take a picture of that Dr. David Hawkins that's going to live forever, right? And post that on their wall. Again, I think that if you can know where you are in the morning and where you are right before you go to bed so that you can actually be conscious of where you are, you will start raising your vibration. And do the gratitude in the morning, like you said. I highly recommend that. But that's just the beginning. That's the frequencies. The next time I want to start talking about how we set ourselves up in life, literally from like all the different life phases and what we came here to learn. So that'll be exciting.
Fun. And that's the next episode. What are we calling the next episode?
It is we're gonna talk about life phases.
Okay. I'm excited. This is so fun, Jeannie. Thank you for having me part of this.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
See you next time.